serious?
Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
He's one of those guys who will get penetration. Good genes. He has great genes.
And I want everybody out there on TV to know it. I am the greatest.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Blake Ruffino, and this is Are You Serious? I have a jam-packed show for you today, which I'm going to be talking about some Southeastern Louisiana football as they named Frank Selfo as their next head coach. I'm also going to be talking about some LSU basketball as they face number 18th ranked Tennessee tonight. And I'm going to be talking about some of the suspensions that Will Wade handed down this Monday. And also I'm going to be talking about some LSU football as they had a huge recruiting weekend this past weekend with some of the top recruits in the 2019 class. But before I get into all that, don't forget to like my Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. You can just subscribe here on YouTube for all my latest videos and catch my audio podcast as well. And you can find that all down in the description below. To start off the show, guys, as I mentioned, I wanted to talk about some Southeastern Louisiana football, and indeed I am. Yesterday, Southeastern Louisiana hired Coach Frank Selfo as their next head coach and held a press conference. In that press conference, Athletic Director J.R. Tees mentioned some things that I really wanted to emphasize on, and especially some of the things that I even emphasized on last week. Right out of the gate, J.R. Tees talked about and stated, wow, what a great turnout we have for the press conference, and I hope that we can have this much turnout and a lot more turnout in our games on Saturdays like we have today. Now, right out of the gate, Ortiz mentions this, and obviously a big thing that Southeastern has struggled with over the past, not just 5 seasons, but the last 10 seasons, is attendance for their games. And I think that this is going to be the huge emphasis of what Southeastern wants. They want a big-time crowd coming to their games, and they want a bigger fan base, and they want to win again. And Ortiz specifically spoke about that. He had a huge statement speaking about Ortiz as he answered some of my questions that I wanted to hear him say. But Ortiz stated that he wants Southeastern to be back atop of the Southland Conference and a huge FCS power. And the biggest comment from yesterday that I took away from Coach Ortiz when he was introducing new head coach Frank Selfo was this: we want someone who can connect with the high school coaches in our state and recruit the state of Louisiana. Now, ever since I launched Are You Serious about 3 months ago, a little bit more than 3 months ago, I had mentioned about Southeastern football that this is going to be a big thing moving forward, regardless if Ron Roberts did move on or if he stayed in-house, or stayed at Southeastern Louisiana, rather. Ortiz is driving this home. He wants his guys and that football team to be made up of some of the best athletes in the state of Louisiana. And I think it's because of the backlash that the football team has gotten in reference to not recruiting the state heavy just like your rivals are doing at Nichols and at McNeese and Northwestern. And talking with about 20-25 head coaches from around the state and just specifically talking about Southeastern football, their biggest argument, or their biggest complaint rather, and I'm just reading a couple quotes from some of the guys and some of the phone calls that I made: look, Southeastern doesn't recruit any of my guys, so why would I send them there if they're not going to recruit us and recruit the state of Louisiana heavy? That was the general consensus of what all these coaches were talking about. And after Ortiz stated this, Frank Selfo, the new head guy, really drove this home. As I mentioned in my article, and you can find that article on Facebook and Twitter, Frank Selfo is a guy that I think that, or I don't think, but Ortiz really thinks that he can get this done. Now, Selfo is a Abbeville native and is from the state of Louisiana and lived his entire life in Louisiana, other than a couple stops here and there at some other colleges and some pro teams. But Selfo yesterday I really wanted to dive into, or yesterday when he was announced the head coach, I really wanted to dive in to see who he was. Now, Selfo, who's 58 years old or 58 years young, has had multiple stops in his professional career, which include Tulane, where he was offensive coordinator there from 1999 to 2006. He was at Louisiana Tech as offensive coordinator from 2007 to 2009. He was also the quarterback's coach for Arizona. Now, in that time, Nick Foles was his quarterback, and he had a really good connection with Nick Foles. And if you guys know and are huge football fans, you know that Nick Foles is going to be the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl this weekend. And that's a big deal. That's a big-time thing, or a big time to have a coach that's done that as your new head guy. Also, he was talking about Selfo. He was the quarterback's coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars and molded Blake Bortles. Now, you may be saying, well, Blake Bortles isn't that great of a quarterback, but if you go back and look, when Selfo was in Jacksonville, Bortles had his best seasons under Selfo. So there's a lot to be encouraged about with this hire, especially when you have two quarterbacks that are currently in the NFL who are molded by Selfo and have really done pretty well. Even Blake Bortles, you can't say that he's done horrible. He led his team to the AFC Championship game, and now Nick Foles leading his team after the injury to Carson Wentz, but leading his team to the Super Bowl, and we'll see how he does this weekend against the GOAT and Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But I know that a lot of you guys were worried about this hire, and I could see why, and I understand why, that you might be worried. Due to the fact that some of the struggles that UTSA had last season. Now Selfo was at UTSA for the last 2 years, and the offense, I believe the total offense, they ranked 65th in 2016 and were 82nd this season while at UTSA. But sometimes these numbers are going to lie to you. And I always tell you guys that don't always focus on stats, because stats will lie to you. Now, this season against the same level of competition, Selfo and UTSA went up against Southern Miss. Now, Southern Miss had the 20th ranked defense in all the nation, and they put up 470 yards against Southern Miss. They put up close to 400 yards against a really tough team in North Texas, and went toe-to-toe with a really talented UAB team who wound up going 9-5, I believe. And watching some of the highlights, as I did all day yesterday and some this morning, it would seem as if Selfo and offensive coordinator Greg Stevens will really mold and really jive together in the same offensive philosophy that these guys are wanting to do and what they want to do. Selfo said in his press conference when he was answering some questions, said this: "We can go out and get some of the best recruits in the state, and we're going to bring them to southeastern Louisiana." It seems as if that he's going to really want to push the state hard and go get some of these guys that are even passed up from LSU, and he's not going to worry about, oh, these guys are going to ULL or Louisiana Tech or ULM. He wants those guys coming to Southeastern. When you have that mentality, that changes things. And if you remember my video last week, that starts shifting that culture change. And honestly, this is what Southeastern needs to do. Southeastern needs to have a guy that's not scared to go in home and be intimidated by these larger schools in the FBS like the ULLs, where Ron Roberts is at now, that he's going to go toe-to-toe with them in Tulane, and he's going to bring these guys here. And if he's able to do that, you will start to see that culture change. And the biggest thing that you'll start to see is more attendance. And that is definitely what JRTs is looking for. And Selfo even mentioned that, look, when I met with the athletic or JRTs, I keep wanting to call him coach because, as some of you guys know, he was that baseball coach at Southeastern for such a long time. But he stated that RTs and President John Crane have the same mindset. And when you have everybody in line and what they want to do, it's one, relieving for me to hear, and something that can really be pushed and really change what Southeastern's doing. So I'm pretty encouraged about the hire. I mean, obviously, I wish it would be a huge splash, but hey, this could really work out well for the Lions. So line up, and I'm going to be really encouraged to see these guys next year and even in the spring as well. Guys, as I also mentioned, I'm going to be talking about some LSU basketball and then transitioning a little bit to some LSU stuff. The biggest news that's really coming out of LSU is what's going on with the basketball program. Now, I know Saturday LSU really had it handed to them against Auburn, but Auburn's a really, really good team. Now they're ranked, I believe, 12th or 13th in the nation. And LSU was just really physically outmatched, and you could tell from start to finish. But tonight, they square off against the number 18th ranked Tennessee Volunteers, and it's going to be another tough matchup as well. Tonight's game does start at 5:30, so if you want to catch the game, you could do so. I believe it's going to be on ESPNU. I'm not 100% sure on that, so you'll have to figure that out. But the Vols, look, they're just like Auburn. They have some really good guys and some really stud forwards on their team. Grant Williams, who is a forward, is averaging about 16 points per game, and Admiral Schofield's averaging about 13 points a game. Look, those guys are big, about 6'5", 6'6", and are really physical and are going to score a lot of points. And it's going to be tough for this team tonight with some of these suspensions that were handed down as well. Look, it's no secret now that Will Wade made these suspensions this past Monday, and I made a post, and it looks like a lot of people had praised Will Wade for these suspensions. But look, I'm not going to do that. These guys are young guys, but as it's been coming out, and if you guys saw, I posted, like I said, on Monday, sophomore forward Wade Sims, freshman guard Brandon Rochelle, and freshman forward Mayan Kier appeared in a rap video, and which led to the suspension. Now, Galen Alexander was also suspended, which I cannot confirm why he was let go and why he's leaving the team. I'm sure that will come out soon enough. But the three guys of Rochelle and Sims and Kier were all in a rap video, and you could go find it. It's WNC Whoop Beezy, and it's titled Feeling Myself. All three guys were front and center in that rap video, and they were just go watch it and make your own opinion. I don't want to drive anything home with that, okay? But I will say this. Look, those guys are 18 and 19. You're going to make silly mistakes. You're going to do some stuff that's just not smart. I mean, just think about when you were that age, or if you're at that age now. Sometimes you don't always make the smartest decisions. But I am glad, and kind of thinking about this a lot, I'm glad that some of these guys only had one game suspensions, especially Sims and Rochelle. I really think that they've learned the lesson, and even some of the guys talking to him, look, I'm sorry, I let my team down. And that's a good thing to hear, right? That's a good thing that these guys really don't want to let their team down. And the entire team wasn't really shocked about this and speaking or at the media day that they had Monday. So, again, it's going to be a learning experience for this guy. Now, it's really known, I should say, that Will Wade really likes Kier and Mayan Kier, and it would seem that he has a soft spot for him. Now, he's going to be leaving for the rest of the season and has a chance to make his way back, but I really don't want to focus too much on what these guys are going through, like I said, but I think this is going to set a culture for Wade. It's going to set that, hey, when you come here, you're coming here to get your education, and you're coming here to play basketball, and you got to let all that other stuff go. So it's going to be a tough match tonight with two key guys out, and I really have no idea how this game's going to go. LSU's traveling 7 scholarship guys and 2 walk-ons. Depth-wise, I just don't know how LSU's going to get it done, but we will see. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. That's why you play the game. All right, guys, I'm going to be transitioning now to some LSU football, and this is something that I really wanted to focus on in today's show. And before I get into LSU football recruiting, like I said earlier in the show, don't forget to like my Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. Just go down to the description below, and you can see all those links there. Don't forget to like and subscribe here to catch all my latest videos as well. Talking about some LSU football, guys, I really wanted to emphasize about, like I mentioned earlier, the huge recruiting weekend that LSU had. Louisiana has a loaded class in 2019, and a couple weeks ago I went on to 103.7 The Game with Blaine Viator and the crew, and I mentioned that just in my analysis of this 2019 class, I really believe that this class could be just as good as that 2011 recruiting class in the state of Louisiana. I know that that sounds crazy and it might sound ridiculous to some, just because in that 2011 class you had guys such as Lowell Collins, Anthony the Freak Johnson, Jarvis Landry, Kenny Hilliard, Odell Beckham, and Trey Turner, who's now a 3-time Pro Bowler for the Carolina Panthers, and even Terrence McGee, who's out of Franklinton where I went to high school, who was one of the most underrated guys in that class. But you got to also look at the entire class. You had guys like Greg Robinson, who wound up going to Auburn instead of LSU, and Dak Prescott was also in that class, and as we all know, went to Mississippi State, and now is a starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. What is so intriguing to me about this 2019 class is that you have guys that are extremely elite. Guys like Ismail Sabcher, Cardell Thomas, which, remember this name, Cardell Thomas, Mr. Pancake, a.k.a. Mr. Pancake, and I'll be coming back to him. Devonta Lee, Trey Palmer, Derek Stingley, John Emery, who's a running back, Tyra Davis, who's also a running back, Jordan Clark, who comes from a very good bloodline, Devin Bush out of New Orleans, and probably the most unknown guy, and Ray Parker, who could be one of the most elite left tackles to come out of Louisiana. He is that physically gifted. And you're talking about 10 to 12 guys, and you may think that this class is really top heavy. But the thing that really gets me, and the thing that I would like to or would emphasize on, is that LSU could have 10 top, or Louisiana just in general could have 10 guys in the top 150. LSU could get those 10 guys, and 10 guys out of the top 150 is extremely, I want to say legit, but it's unheard of, especially from your state. If Orgeron could also, and he was there this weekend, Grant Gunnell, who was the #1 overall quarterback or pro quarterback, he was there as well. And there were some pictures that surfaced about Orgeron really like doing a strip sack on Grant Gunnell. If you could get him to also come to this class, LSU is positioning themselves with a really elite 2019 recruiting class and going and getting a quarterback who they think would be elite for them. But Orgeron did something that I did expect, but I didn't expect it to be this early. Orgeron probably made his biggest move and the best move that he's made since he's taken over the full-time position. Remember, I just mentioned earlier about Cardell Thomas, aka Mr. Pancake. Orgeron had a meeting in the recruiting weekend with Thomas and wanted him to be the face of this 2019 class. That is brilliant, and here's why. Thomas is a freak of nature, standing 6'4", 6'5", 320 pounds. This guy is probably, in my mind and in my breaking down on some of this 2019 class, is a top 10 guy all around in the nation. That's right, in the nation. When you make a guy like this the face of your recruiting class and a face of your program, you start getting these elite recruits, and especially from your state. Now, I believe Cardell Thomas made a group text with all these elite guys in Louisiana, and it's going to drive home, hey, we need to stay home. We need to go to LSU, and we're going to get that national title. And this really makes a cornerstone of what Orgeron wants and what LSU football is transitioning to be. There's a video and a couple videos that you could go watch of Cardell Thomas of him running the anchor and the relay for the track team at 6'5", 320 pounds, and he's smoking some guys that are much smaller than him. This guy's really elite. He's really physical. He went to an All-American camp or All-American Junior Day, I believe it was with the Army All-American game, and went up against some of the top guys in that class on the defensive line and physically dominated all of them. pancaking them, shoving them down, falling on top of them, wanting more. He has that it factor. Cardell Thomas has that it factor. And when you make that guy the face of your program, that starts changing that culture. And remember, I've been using that word so much lately. Orgeron is changing the culture of what LSU football is going to be. And I fully believe that Cardell Thomas is going to be able to get these guys to LSU, especially the #1 overall ranked guy in Ismail Sapcha. Think about this. You have two of the top guys in your state on the offense and defensive line, and they could be at LSU next year and probably, if not starting, will get a crap ton of playing time. That is amazing. I can't emphasize how big that would be. And I'm not going to, because you guys by now should know how much I love Coach Miles. But if you go back and look at the recruiting classes that he had, he would get a couple of big-time linemen, but would really focus on the skill guys. When you start getting these big-time recruits on the offense and defensive line and big-time playmakers such as Devonta Lee and Trey Palmer, you start changing that culture of, hey, you go to LSU not to just get an NFL, LSU, but to go and win championships, SEC championships, and competing for a national title. And I know a lot of you will be like, well, Blake, there's no way Orgeron will lead his team to a national championship. You guys keep sleeping on Orgeron, especially bringing in classes like this. He's going to shock you, okay? And to be completely honest, just sharing with you how I completely feel, this is more exciting, or as more excited that I've been about LSU football in a long time, especially when you do stuff like this. Now, I made a couple phone calls and talking about that culture change and doing stuff like this, what happens is it doesn't just affect your 2019 class, it affects your 2018 class as well. And I just mentioned I made a couple phone calls about that. And naming Cardell Thomas that face of that 2019 class, it affects guys like 4-star quarterback James Foster. Now, today, Ed Orgeron and recruiting coordinator Tommy Robinson will be going in-home with James Foster before he starts to go to Texas A&M and his last visit with Florida State. Some things have been surfacing that James Foster is really looking forward to LSU, and it really has LSU high upon his list. And I think LSU has been focusing on James Foster more than anybody else all along. And the reason I say that is that I know I mentioned in one of my videos a couple weeks ago that might not be the case, but just hearing some things around Baton Rouge, Orgeron and LSU wants to finish this 2018 class out with Pat Surtain Jr., Jamar Chase, and all indications look like they want James Foster, and are going to do everything that they can to get James Foster in the purple and gold into Baton Rouge. If this is the case, and Ed Orgeron finishes with a top 10 class when he's got to rebuild depth, this is going to be the most this is going to be the most underrated class maybe at LSU in the last 10 years. And the reason I say that, and I'm trying to regain my thought on that, but the reason I say that is because when you normally add depth, you don't have top classes. But when you're starting to add depth and then you have a top class, you start winning national championships. You know how I know? Go look at Clemson. Go look at their recruiting classes and the way that they rebuild depth and still have top 15 classes and go to the national championship and go to the playoffs. Now, you may be saying, well, Blake, they have a quarterback and it's a different culture there. But look, they never have had a top 5 class, and they go and get the guys that they want, and they don't care about stars and star ratings. So it's interesting of what's going to happen, and I'm really looking forward to what Coach Orgeron's going to be doing and his staff in the next couple of weeks and in the next couple of years to come. So, like I said, I'm so excited for some LSU football, and I I want to finish with this, and I want to be careful how I finish it. Don't sleep on Ed Orr's running this staff. That's all I can really say. So, all right, guys, y'all have a great day, and we will see you again soon. Peace out.